For 50 years, Ron Howard looked like the perfect guy. The classic all-American kid from that little town of Mayberry who turned into a big Hollywood king. But in his newest chat, he spilled the scary stuff hidden behind that grin. The heartbreaking decision he made back in 1991 that still bugs him today. The family member he nearly lost to drugs while he was grabbing all those prizes. And that one time on the movie set when his body just quit, Ron's honest talk about what really went down during those lost months will totally crush your heart. Ronald William Howard was born on March 1st, 1954 in Duncan, Oklahoma. And right from when he first opened his eyes, the whole room was already buzzing with movie lines. His dad, Rance Howard, had picked Howard as his acting name way back in 1948 before he joined the Air Force. His mom, Jean Spiegel, had trained to be an actress and tied the knot with Rance in 1949 in Winchester, Kentucky. When Ron showed up, Rance was still wearing his uniform, juggling Army stuff with dreams of the screen. But even before Ron could say a word, he was already in front of a camera. At only 18 months old, he popped up in his first movie, a Western named Frontier Woman. They shot it between late 1955 and early 1956. That set wasn't just his very first gig. It kicked off a life where being a kid and hitting your marks mixed all together. While other little ones were figuring out how to walk, Ron was learning where to stand under those bright lights. As TV shows started heading out west, the Howards grabbed their stuff and ditched Oklahoma. Rance drove the whole family right to California, not for the beaches, but to be close by. He wasn't after the fancy life. He was going all in on staying near the hot spot for new TV work. Ron was just a tiny kid, but that trip landed him right by the bosses, the writers, and the sets before he even touched a school desk. He was already doing stuff on Playhouse 90 before starting real classes. And by the time his brother Clint came along on April 20th, 1959 in Burbank, the family's big plan was paying off. They handled their money all themselves. No studio watchers, no strangers, just a dad juggling his own acting jobs with being the full support team for his boy. Rance grabbed more than 140 movie roles and 177 TV spots, not to get famous, but to stick near Ron's scene and keep everything rolling. Then came October 3rd, 1960. Ron was 6. That night, America got to know Opie Taylor for the first time on The Andy Griffith Show. On the credits, Ron was just another kid actor listed as Ronnie Howard. But the bond was something else. On set, a real connection clicked. Rance didn't just leave his son there, he pushed back on the writers. After an early script run-through, he straight up told the bosses that the dad-son parts felt phony. Andy Griffith paid attention. They shook on making it real. Andy and Opie's link would copy Ron and Rance's. That deal gave the show its heart. Over time, Rance even popped up as a guest 5 times, hanging around while Ron tackled lines in days that would break most adults. For 8 seasons, right up to 1968, Ron didn't just get taller. He grew up inside a TV kid world built on love, jobs, and grown-up hopes wrapped in small-town tales. Their house in Burbank wasn't any celeb mansion. Ron went to Robert Louis Stevenson Elementary, then David Starr Jordan Jr. High, and later John Burroughs High School. The family chowed down on meatloaf and fish sticks and stashed cash like actors who figured it might vanish any day. Scripts stacked up by the dinner table, but Rance and Jean set boundaries. No paid watchers, no crazy stage mom drama. Ron played in Park League sports when he wasn't cramming lines. Clint jumped into the biz too, quietly king up over 200 acting gigs. They were bros, but also work buddies, figuring out young what it was like to clock in with cameras around. Ron's style on the job didn't come from kid star gut feel. It came from practice. Rance showed him how to really listen, how to wait a beat, how to reply like a real person, not some show-off. When Ron snagged the part of Opie, it was 'cause he didn't ham it up like a typical child star. He just did it for real. Boss Sheldon Leonard spotted it fast. He said Ron didn't push to be adorable. He just spoke true. That's what Rance hammered home. Be honest, not cutesy. Even at 6, it paid off. Ron's early checks were just a couple $100 per show, but they jumped as the thing blew up. He was still dropping baby teeth when fans in Burbank would stop him for signatures. But while his face lit up screens, His real kid days were quietly fading. One of the toughest to forget bits hit in 1963, Season 4, Episode 1, Opie the Birdman. 9-year-old Ron shot a scene where Opie cares for baby birds he orphaned after accidentally killing their mom. No fancy effects. He just stood there, breathing, blinking, letting true feelings take over. Director Bob Sweeney hardly needed second tries. Andy Griffith named it pro-level timing. Ron used a trick called substitution. If the part needed sad, he'd pull up something that really stung. Then he'd shake it off when the camera cut. That wasn't playing gift. It was grip that most kids don't get. But even with all the warmth on set, Ron felt by himself. He named those days a shiny jail. Safe but locked tight. On set, he had a little school spot near Stage 40 at Desilu. California rules said 3 hours of lessons, 8 hours max per day. A kid welfare lady hung close, but Ron had no true playmates. He did math while crew guys moved gear. At breaks, he'd eat with his dad or the props dude. Andy would strum guitar, Don knots crack. Ed safe jokes. They tried keeping it every day, but Ron missed pickup baseball and biking around the block. He didn't whine, but he sensed it. In 1962, the Music Man added a fresh load. He was 8 and cast as Winthrop Peru in a huge money musical. He couldn't carry a tune. He tripped over his own feet. Music boss Ray Heindorf spent hours drilling him on the song Gary, Indiana. Ron freaked in the soft shoe dance and whispered to Shirley Jones, "I can't do it, Shirley. I can't do it." She talked him down. The team filmed him from the knees up and tacked on tap noises after, but it landed. His bashful, kind turn helped turn the movie into one of 1962's top smashes. What nobody caught was the battle he waged off camera. Between shots, Ron didn't just learn his words, he nailed Shirley Jones's too. He messed with dolls and ran full pretend scenes, bossing tiny actors through spots and speeches. To the rest, it seemed like kid games. To Shirley, it screamed future director. Rance was already penning scripts for the Flintstones and more. He walked Ron through picking apart a scene, getting why a character says each thing. Those tips didn't fade. They hid till Ron jumped to directing stuff like Grand Theft Auto at only 23. By 1966, Ron gave something fresh a whirl. He hopped on the Monroes, a cowboy show shot in the rough Wyoming mountains. It was tough, true ground. He picked up horse skills by eyeing the ranch crew. The spot cost a ton. The show wrapped after just 26 episodes before NBC axed it in 1967. Ron was 13. For the first time, he tasted getting dumped. The Andy Griffith Show kept rocking, but the Monroes stung deep. He blamed himself. That hurt lingered. In 1968, the Brady Bunch test episode knocked. Ron got a shot at trying out. He said nope, not because he hated it, but his folks shut it down. Rance and Gene had a hard line. One of them had to be home every day from 9 o'clock a.m. to 6 o'clock p.m. If work hit, they aimed for even keel. They wanted him normalish. Ron craved that too. At 14, he hungered for classes, room to breathe, pals. He skipped the tryout, and it might have guarded his path, because by 1974 he turned into Richie Cunningham on Happy Days, the gig that hauled him through his teens and handed him cash and room to slip behind the lens. In 1969, Ron's agent scored a huge win. He locked in Ron repeat money from Andy Griffith Show reruns, about $50,000 a year. That topped what Sandy Koufax pulled at his baseball best. But the Howards didn't blow it. They stayed simple. They set up savings, grabbed U.S. bonds, and rolled on same as ever. Ron nagged to sink cash in a go-kart setup with buddies. His parents greenlit it. He dropped about $25,000. That was his kickoff in betting big. Acting brought bucks, but handling them, that was another game. That hit home. On April 1st, 1968, the last Andy Griffith Show episode dropped. Ron was 14. He knew that set cold. He knew every light spot and every crew spot. That final week weighed a ton. Folks kept call sheets like keepsakes. Andy and Ron hung late chatting baseball. Their on-screen bye was low-key, but Ron sensed a close. He'd spent his whole kid time 48 feet from a lens. Now he had to teen it up, and in 2 years he was already mixing school with tryouts. The day they tore down the Mayberry sets, the next bit had kicked off. In 1974, Ron Howard was just 19 when he strolled into Gary Marshall's office and flipped his whole path. He didn't spit the lines like the rest. He plopped down and called for a cherry phosphate like it was his daily hang. The spark with Henry Winkler hit right away. It wasn't scripted, but who cared? For 12 minutes, Ron turned into Richie Cunningham and Marshall clocked it. ABC hemmed and hawed. They fretted the Mayberry boy couldn't fake teen anymore. But Gary Marshall shoved back and Ron inked a 5-year pact for $7,500 each show. He topped 35 other hopefuls, not by yelling big, but by sounding just like the guy Wubby, who'd tote your grandma's bags. That's what snagged him 255 episodes. By season 5 in 1977, Ron had played the same sunny teen so long it rang hollow. He was 23, stuck as a frozen kid while the real world raged out there. Vietnam filled the news, the rags, and it clashed that Richie blanked it. So Ron dashed off a 3-page note to ABC. He begged for true stuff. He floated a plot with Richie dodging the draft. They nixed it. Too touchy, too dicey for sponsors. So the fix came in hints. Richie scanning war papers in the back. A quick nod to draft passes. Ron felt boxed in. He later told TV Guide that faking chipper teen when the globe soured made him gasp for air. That itch sparked something. He didn't just want to act. He craved the reins. He itched to call shots. In 1976, Fonzie owned the scene. Leather coats flew off shelves, posters, toys, lunch kits, all raking $50 million in extras. ABC floated renaming to Fonz's Happy Days. Ron knew the drill. His dad, Rance, had scrapped for credit spots his whole run. So Ron stepped up. He pulled $15,000 a show, but he warned he'd bolt. He handed them 48 hours to leave the name alone. If not, they'd ditch him and face a $500,000 suit for busting contract. Gary Marshall backed him. The show spun on family, not just Fonzie. ABC gave in partway. Name stuck, but Fonzie topped the credits. It was a hush win. Then, in October 1977, Ron grabbed his break. He helmed Season 5, Episode 5, A Date with Fonzie. Cash was tight, just $10,000. 32 bits, 3 days. He rolled in with a shot plan so tight, the team dubbed it Spielberg grade. 1 bit trailed Fonzie through Arnold's Diner in a 90-second glide. That'd usually eat hours. Ron aced it in 2, saving $3,000. Viewers spiked 12%. That's 31 million eyes. ABC tossed him 2 more to lead and tacked $2,500 bonus each on his acting pay. Henry Winkler said later Ron rattled him good in the fun way. He dragged out raw feels over zip lines. While this buzzed, another thing brewed. In 1976, Ron popped in Eat My Dust, a low-rent teen smash flick from Roger Corman, but it wasn't pure play. He'd cut a deal. He'd star only if Corman let him steer the follow-up. That was Grand Theft Auto, out in 1977. Ron co-penned it with Dad Rance. Pot was $602,000, but it hauled $15 million. That's a 2,400% flip. They wrecked 70 rides on tape, like a $40,000 Rolls-Royce, 3 caddies, 7 cop cars. Ron skipped red tape. He filmed on live roads by Victorville. Lenses jolted, autos tumbled. Mess was legit. He even roped in Mom, Bro Clint, and Happy Days pal Marion Ross. It dropped in theaters June 16, 1977. And boom, nobody snickered at the ginger from Mayberry now. Ron was only 21 when he wed Cheryl Alley on June 7, 1975. High school flames. He popped the question on the folks' couch. Henry Winkler stood up for him. Andy Griffith and Tom Bosley showed too. When Cheryl hit labor with Kid 1, Ron was mid-shoot. He ditched it all and raced to the dock. Years on, he said it plain. Cheryl was the true tale, always had been. While he shot, scribbled, bossed, she glued it tight. In 1982, Ron leapt with Night Shift, a grim laugher in a dead house. Plot was nuts. 2 dudes pimping from a New York morgue. It had Henry Winkler and kicked off Michael Keaton big time. $8 million in, $21 million out. Keaton taped brainstorms, boogied with a Walkman, hollered, "Is this a great country or what?" Trial crowds flagged it too raw. The ratings board sweated, but it clicked. Winkler nabbed a globe nod. Keaton burst wide. The pick was gutsy and showed Ron could crank studio flicks that dodged tame. Then Splash hit. In 1984, Ron bossed Tom Hanks and Daryl Hannah in a romance of Guy Meets Mermaid, Disney's kickoff touchstone. Cash from $8 million to $11 million took $69.8 million. Mermaid tail tipped 35 pounds and glued on forever. Daryl Hannah swam all water bits solo, no body double. She outdid the pros. Ron and maker Brian Grazer gawked. At jump end was Downer, Madison Head Sea, Allen Sticks Land. But test views had every wife fuming, so they flipped. Allen jumps after, Love scores, reviewers dug it. 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. Oscar nod. Tom Hanks blew up. For Ron, it sealed. He wasn't just solid, he could pack theaters. Post-Splash, Ron and Brian Grazer teamed Imagine Entertainment in November 1985. It launched dead serious. They fused shops and went public next year. TriStar inked a pact. Showtime and Movie Channel too. First drops were TV picks, big screen, then series like Sports Night. Century City Digs got a $4.5 million spruce in 1998. Folks gossiped on the outlay, but stats yelled back. Over 43 Oscar shouts and 198 Emmys over years. Imagine Halls topped $15 billion global. In 1995, Apollo 13 flipped it all again. Ron led on $52 million. They snagged real NASA control boards, some for $1 from Gov leftovers. Shot 612 no-grav bits on the puke plane each 23 seconds. That's 10 days of dive loops. Blast with Ed Harris took 12 runs, ran $340,000. One flop torched Harris's brows. Ron wouldn't fake. Switch flips, radio buzz, every flash. Had to nail. Flick pulled $355 million world. 9 Oscar noms, 2 wins, but the road near wrecked him. Ron logged 18-hour hauls for 90 days straight. He crashed NASA meets, eyed every clip, ran night drills. Day 90, he dropped. Dry as dust, blood pressure wild. Set hushed. Shoot halted 36 hours. Back on, crew rocked tees saying mission control. Wasn't film no more. Proof. Ron had ditched Opie Taylor. No redo needed. Then he slipped. EDTV out 1999 ate $80 million. Bagged $50 million all in. Ron had passed Castaway for it. Dropped a month after The Truman Show, same yarn, sharper. Pundits called it media alert that joined the mess. Cost Imagine $30 million red. But Ron soaked it, tuned in, pressed on. By 1999, Imagine juggled 23 builds. Universal funded 6 flicks yearly. $60 million lid each. Ron didn't helm all, but stamped them. Hives hummed. Crew hit 140. 90s output alone cashed $2.3 billion. In 2001, Ron Howard gripped the lens for A Beautiful Mind on $58 million and a fresh twist. He aimed to let crowds feel John Nash's head, not via spin tricks or odd looks, but quiet faith. Shot Nash's mind trips sans sight hints, no wavy cuts, no heads up. Pals Charles Herman and William Parcher rang true 'cause to Nash they did. Ron wanted watchers to catch the real same time Nash did. Most bits rolled in time order, 90% of pick playing as Nash breathed it. Ron hit Princeton thrice to lock it. Payoff stunned. March 24th, 2002, he grabbed Best Director Oscar. But the secret under the tale wasn't Nash's alone. It was Ron's too. 'Cause behind the prize setups and slick slices hid bits of his own days tossed over years of reels, sorries, squeeze, kin, and soft hurts. A Beautiful Mind crushed but dodged flak knot. Hacks hit the skips. They eyed Nash's gaps. The flings, the ditched boy from 1953, the 1954 bus that yanked his clearance. Math whizzes griped the easy Nash equilibrium bit. But zilch blocked the pull of over $313 million global. 4 Oscars. Ron showed a yarn could snag souls even slicing reality's bite. Just 5 years on, Ron faced Wild Mess Type 2. In 2006, he bossed the Da Vinci Code on $125 million with Tom Hanks as Robert Langdon. But the Catholic crew iced him. St. Sulpice in Paris and Westminster Abbey in London barred entry. Ron's squad had to fake full churches on comps, and even that snagged. At St. Sulpice, virtual spots missed by Specs and Zilch fit the mix guys' hopes. Westminster bits shifted to Lincoln and Winchester spots. Lincoln hit 100,000 and let shoots August 15th to 19 in 2005. The bosses okayed, but night only. No beams on Mona Lisa, so 5 knockoffs built just for the grab. Pick grossed $758 million world. Figures seemed smooth. Grind never was. That year, Ron mourned low-key. Dad Rance Howard laced near all. Apollo 13 Espelay. Ash, A Beautiful Mind, Parenthood. But November 25th, 2017, Rance went at 89 in LA, months after wife Judy split in January. He'd started as Harold Engel Beckenbaugh in Duncan, Oklahoma on November 17, 1928. Ron dubbed him a tough times farm lad who flipped it chasing fancy. Rance hit the Waltons, Seinfeld, Grey's Anatomy, and snagged an Emmy shout for Through the Magic Pyramid. The guy who schooled Ron on acting and ear was out. In 2008, Ron grabbed Frost Nixon off the 2006 stage. $25 to $29 million pot, he nailed the hush fight of David Frost and Richard Nixon. He dug tape archives, eyed every tick, hold, huff. When Frank Langella dropped Nixon's killer line, "I let the American people down," it boomed. Pick nabbed 5 Oscar nods at the 81st, like Best Pick and Director, but past the buzz, it just hit $28.5 million. Rare Best Pick hopeful that tanked cash. Way before this, June 7th, 1975, Ron hitched with high school honey Cheryl Alley, both 21. They set a rule day one. No job chat at Eats. That stuck 50 years. Cheryl acted some. She'd guested Happy Days, knew the grind but guarded home base. They raised 4, Bryce Dallas, twins Jocelyn and Paige, Reed, while Ron juggled sets and shops. When Bryce dropped March 1981, Ron did a thing he kicked himself for. He bossed her school show at 5. He aimed sweet but shoved her to act pre-choice. Years back, he said sorry. She let it go. Hit NYU's Tish, launched solo with The Village in 2004, later pulled $8 million per Jurassic World. Ron eased off. Didn't nudge the rest. Lesson sunk. But not all hits landed soft. In the 80s, Bro Clint sank in coke and booze. Clint child acted too. Hollywood chewed him rough. By 1990, bottom scraped. Ron laid it bare. Rehab or buy on us. Clint picked living. In their 2021 book, The Boys, they spilled it. Ron owned the guilt. His climb left Clint trailing. In 1991, Jocelyn arrived. 1 year later, Ron split for 6 months to shoot Far and Away in Ireland. Longest ever from Cheryl Bryce, the new babe. Home, Jocelyn shifted. Bryce hardly knew him. Cheryl solo parented. Shake hit hard. He vowed no long overseas hauls. Mostly held, but 2005 cracked. Cinderella Man dragged reshoots. Missed more Bryce bits. In 2025, at 50th Vow Bash, Ron gifted a bench to John Burroughs High where they sparked. He whispered real. Still kicked for skipped chunks. Cheryl nodded. No job meal rule held, but she wished he'd clocked the tab sooner. In 2020, he bossed Hillbilly Elegy. Netflix shelled $45 million. Hacks shredded it. Landed a Razzie shout for Worst Boss, but Glenn Close grabbed Oscar, SAG, Globe nods. Same year, Ron dropped Rebuilding Paradise doc on 2018 Campfire that took 85 lives and raised 14,000 pads. His in-law dwelled there. Clips, yarns wrecked him. Named it toughest gig ever. Shot over a year, no blink. Then Eden. In 2025, Ron veered fresh. Survival chiller in 1930s Galapagos. Heard tale 15 years back on break. Jotted film bones on BlackBerry that night. Starred Sydney Sweeney, Jude Law, Ana de Armas, Vanessa Kirby, Daniel Bruhl. 55 million pick, hit 664 screens and grabbed just 1 million. Ron called it art gamble that left him wired worried. He'd near quit already. 2018, Solo, a Star Wars story crumbled. Took helm mid-run after first bosses canned. Redid 70%. Still flopped. In 2025, he aired public solo near killed his boss streak, but Bryce yanked back. Rebounded with Apple TV Plus stuff, kept at it. By 2025, Ron wed 50 years. Co-ran Imagine 40 with Brian Grazer. Firm cranked over 50 flicks, 47 Oscar nods, 289 Emmy shouts. Worth topped $200 million. Gives dad props for humble school. Now guides young bosses. Still spins yarns. Still recalls Burrow's bench, empty meal chair, babe who blanked him. Recalls it full,